Good morning, everybody. It's Halloween morning, and it's chilly outside. And hope everybody has had a good weekend so far. And please be safe today. Today's passage we're going to be looking at Genesis 13, and please join us in person. 9:45, actually about an hour and a half or 2 hours away. Leslie's going to be bringing the same message to you in person. So Genesis chapter 13, verses 5 through 8, and let's look at Lot and Abram. We've been studying Abraham, or Abram, as he's called at this point, and his nephew Lot. They've been traveling. They had a detour. They went over to Egypt for a little bit during a famine, and then they were kicked out of Egypt because basically Abram tried to pull a fast one on Pharaoh. So anyway, now they're back in Canaan land, and they are trying to decide where to live and that sort of thing. And so there's some problems that arise. And, conflict is something that we face every day when we drive, when we get to work, or when we deal with friends and family and loved ones, that sort of thing. And so choosing how to react is a big issue. One of the things that One of the things that faces us in life also is church can have major conflict as well. Antioch Baptist Church was, or still is, I should say, an old church in Winston-Salem off of Palmer Lane in Clemensville Road area there in the south end of Winston-Salem. And my dad was pastor there from 1976 until around 1986 or so anyways. It was almost 10 years. 85, 86. And after he left, they had a hard time deciding who should be the pastor. One group felt that one gentleman should be the pastor. The other group felt that they needed to wait and consider somebody else and that sort of thing. They didn't feel like this gentleman should be the pastor. It was basically a 50-50 split. It was a large split. And so one group of people decided to go form another church in Winston, and the other group stayed there at Antioch. And this was, like I said, mid-'80s. And so the church really struggled. They had some good times after that. They had some good pastors, I should say. But they just struggled. And so today is the last Sunday that they're going to be as a church body there on 910 Palmer Lane in Winston-Salem. A nonprofit has purchased that facility, and there's going to be a nonprofit, a Christian group, operating out of that facility, and I'm not sure what's going to happen to Antioch, the church body itself. But the point of that is there was major conflict, and both sides just really stood their ground, and ultimately there was a church split, and that's how a lot of churches are formed, unfortunately, through splits. But anyway, how do we deal with people? And so let's look at Genesis chapter 13, verses 5 through 8. Now Lot, who was traveling with Abram, also had flocks, herds, and tents, but the land was unable to support them as long as they stayed together, for they had so many possessions that they could not stay together. And there was quarreling between the herdsmen of Abram's livestock and the herdsmen of Lot's livestock. And at the time, the Canaanites and the Perizzites were living in the land. So, there's other people there. So Abram said to Lot, "Please let us not quarrel between you and me, or between your herdsmen and my herdsmen, since we are relatives." They didn't want to be fighting with each other and then all of a sudden be taken over by another group of people. And so Abram says to Lot, his nephew, let's try to pause on this, and let's try to see how we can get along and figure out a plan. And so Genesis chapter 13, verses 9 through 11, "Isn't the whole land before you? Separate from me. If you go to the left, I will go to the right. If you go to the right, I will go to the left." Lot looked and saw that the entire plain of the Jordan, as far as Zoar, was well watered, everywhere like the Lord's garden and the land of Egypt. This was before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. So Lot looked at the river bottom land, the fertile land. If you're ever driving up 421 heading to Boone, or if you're heading back from Boone and you're driving down 421 and you see the Yadkin Valley area, that river area, there's always lots of fields of corn and that sort of thing. So it's very fertile river land. And so the point of this really is not where Lot moved, although it is interesting, but Abram said to him, "You get the first choice." He diffused the conflict by saying, "You first, me second." Abraham was older than Lot. Abram could have said, "You know what, I choose this and you go away. You know, you leave my midst, would have been a, old King James version. But basically, he told Lot, you choose first. And so Lot's like, okay, I choose the best land. Good old Lot. Whole lot of Lot going on here. So, how do you see Abram's choice of how to handle conflict in something with us? So this is going to be a short lesson this morning because, the main lesson Leslie's going to teach in person, and I just wanted to basically get a vignette to you guys that are unable to be in person this morning. Genesis chapter 13, verses 14 to 18. After Lot had separated from him, the Lord said to Abram, look from your place where you are. Look north and south, east and west, for I will give you your offspring forever, all the land that you see. I will make your offspring like the dust of the earth, so that if anyone could count the dust of the earth, then your offspring would be counted. You ever go down, or ever dust in your house, and you, especially a television, seem to capture a lot of dust. So next time you dust around your television, think about God's promise to Abram. Get up and walk around the land, though its length and width, for I will give to you. So Abraham moved his tent and went to live near the oaks of Mamre. I love that. It's M-A-M-R-E. Mamre, of Hebron, where he built an altar to the Lord. In other words, it was a really important place. So the point of the lesson this morning is Abram, he diffused conflict by being second, by saying, okay, person I'm having a conflict with, which was actually a family member, which, that's we're heading into Thanksgiving and Christmas, so remember this lesson. But he told him, you get the first choice. And, of course, Lot did. Interestingly, the area that Lot chose was outside of the promised land. It was fertile. It was nice. You could grow lots of crops. There were some cities around, Sodom and Gomorrah. At that time, they hadn't obviously been destroyed by God, but, they seemed like great metropolitan areas. So Lot thought, not only can I have this great land here to grow crops, but I'm also near some cities. It was outside the promised land. Whenever Abram made that choice and he separated from Lot, God met with Abram and said, thank you for making that choice. Since you made that choice, I'm going to bless your people. Father Abraham had many sons. I sang that the other week, maybe last week too. And if you know the story of Lot, yeah, he had a mess on his hands after that when he chose that land. You ever see somebody and they choose a house, and then years later it's like, ooh, I made a poor choice, location. But in this case, Lot didn't wait on God. He chose for himself. So don't be a Lot, be an Abraham. Don't be a lot of Lot, be a lot of Abraham. Especially, remember this, heading into Thanksgiving and Christmas, as we are among a lot of people, including family. Thanks, everybody. Hope you have a great Halloween. Be safe. Thanks again. We'll see you soon. Bye.